The first time Kael saw her, he couldn't look away. She wasn't like any being he had ever met. Towering above him in her regal silver-blue attire, her eyes shimmered like molten sapphires, reflecting a galaxy of emotions he could barely comprehend. And yet there was something human in her gaze, curious, vulnerable, almost daring him to understand. Kael had come to the planet Lumara as a scout, a human sent to map uncharted territories and make contact with intelligent life. He had expected aliens, certainly, but never this. Not someone who exuded elegance yet carried an unspoken wariness. Not someone who seemed entirely capable of reading his thoughts before he even spoke them. He cleared his throat, feeling the weight of centuries of human hesitation. "Your eyes are gorgeous," he said, the words rolling off his tongue before he could second-guess himself. Her head tilted slightly, the gesture fluid and mesmerizing. "Do they seem like eyes that belong to fear or curiosity?" she asked softly, her voice melodic yet edged with authority. It wasn't a question for amusement, she genuinely wanted an answer. Kael hesitated. He was a man of action, of decisions made in seconds, but here he found himself frozen. "Curiosity," he admitted, letting the truth slip, raw and unpolished. "And maybe a bit of awe. I've never seen anyone like you." Her lips curved into a faint smile, just enough to make him question whether she truly trusted him. "Curiosity," she repeated almost to herself as if tasting the word. "It is the essence of life, is it not? Without curiosity there is no growth, no understanding, no bridge between worlds." Her words hit him like a jolt of lightning. The alien princess, whose name he would soon learn was Liara, spoke with wisdom far beyond what her youthful appearance suggested. And yet, there was an honesty in her tone that made him feel human, fully human in ways he hadn't experienced since he left Earth. "Kael," she continued, her gaze piercing into his mind more than her words did. "Humans, they are resilient creatures, fragile, yes, but capable of extraordinary courage. I have studied your kind through archives and transmissions. I've wondered, what makes you reach for stars when even your own feet struggle on the ground?" He blinked, unsure whether to feel flattered or exposed. But then instinct took over. "It's hope," he said firmly. "Hope and maybe stubbornness, but mostly hope. Humans never stop trying even when everything tells them they can't." Liara's eyes widened ever so slightly. "Hope, stubbornness, these qualities, they echo in you," she said, her voice softening, the regal distance melting into something almost intimate. "You are not like the others I have observed. There is something unbreakable in you, something compelling." Kael felt a shiver run down his spine. This was no ordinary encounter. He had met beings with intelligence, beings with technology that could rewrite physics, but none had ever made him feel seen like this. He wanted to speak, to explain himself, but the weight of her gaze held him silent, trembling with anticipation. Then, almost imperceptibly, she leaned closer, her eyes locking onto his, unwavering. "Kael," she whispered, "you must understand. In this galaxy, trust is rare, and yet I sense it in you. Perhaps you are more human than even you realize." And just like that, the air between them thickened with unspoken possibilities. The kind of possibilities that could reshape worlds or shatter hearts. Kael realized he had stumbled into something far greater than exploration. He had stumbled into the beginning of a connection that would challenge everything he thought he knew about courage, loyalty, and the human spirit. The stars outside her palace windows twinkled like silent witnesses. Somewhere, deep in the cosmos, something ancient and knowing watched as human resilience and alien wisdom collided. And in that moment, Kael understood this encounter was not just extraordinary. It was destiny. The next morning, Kael awoke in the guest chambers of Liara's palace, the sunlight of Lumara filtering through crystalline windows. The walls shimmered with soft hues of violet and gold, reflecting the alien planet's morning glow. Yet even in this dazzling environment, his mind was anchored to her words from the night before. Curiosity had turned into a restless obsession. He kept thinking about her eyes, about the strange mixture of command and vulnerability they held. He wondered, did she always see the truth of those around her, or had he somehow passed her invisible test? A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Kael," a voice called. It was Liara, her tone neutral but carrying a subtle warmth. "You are awake. Good." He rose quickly, trying not to appear flustered, and opened the door. She stood there, framed by the corridor's luminescent patterns, her gaze assessing him, I hope you slept well, she said, voice calm, almost musical. I did, Kael replied. Better than I expected, actually. He hesitated, then added, Your palace. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Liara's lips curved into a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Beauty can be deceiving, she said. You may admire what you see, but true strength lies beneath. And on this world, strength is not measured by power alone. Kael nodded, intrigued. There was a weight in her words, a truth he understood more than he wanted to admit. Humans, he thought, always measured strength in action, in endurance. Yet she hinted at something deeper. Resilience that could not be quantified. Courage that could not be commanded. Kael, she said, stepping closer. Do you know why humans survive against impossible odds? Her gaze was sharp now, testing like an unseen probe through his very thoughts. Why they continue even when faced with overwhelming darkness. He swallowed. Because they hope. They endure. And sometimes, they fight even when losing seems inevitable. Liara's eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment she seemed almost human. Yes, she murmured. You understand something fundamental about your species. That is rare. Most creatures fall prey to fear or complacency. Humans, they rise. Kael felt a swell of pride, not from her praise, but from the recognition of humanity's essence. He realized this was what made humans extraordinary, the blend of defiance, empathy, and unyielding spirit. He felt seen, truly seen, not as a scout, not as a human observer, but as Kael, a being capable of choice, courage, and wonder. Then she stepped even closer, her sapphire eyes locking onto his. Kael, she said softly, I have watched your world for centuries. I have seen humans struggle, fall, rise, and transform. And yet you carry something different. Something dangerous. Dangerous? Kael echoed, tension rising in his chest. She nodded, a shadow crossing her expression. Dangerous to despair, dangerous to defeat, dangerous to those who underestimate you. I sense potential, great potential, and it frightens me in ways I cannot name. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant hum of the palace's energy conduits. Kael felt a shiver run down his spine. Her words were a challenge, a puzzle, and a promise all at once. You intrigue me, she admitted, stepping back just enough to maintain her royal composure. I do not often allow curiosity to interfere with duty. Yet, you, Kael, are unlike anyone I have ever encountered. Her voice lingered in the air long after she turned to leave. Kael stood frozen, realizing that whatever this connection was, it had already begun to change him. Not just as a human in a foreign world, but as a man who might, just might, alter the course of an entire planet's destiny. And as he watched her silhouette fade into the corridors, he understood one undeniable truth. This alien princess had awoken something primal in him, the relentless, indefatigable spark of human spirit. The palace gardens of Lumara were unlike any Kael had seen. Towering crystalline flora glimmered in the afternoon light, petals humming with an unseen energy. The air itself felt alive, vibrant, almost sentient, and yet, despite the beauty surrounding him, Kael felt a tension coiled tight in his chest, an unspoken warning that this world, and Liara herself, were far from ordinary. He had been summoned to the central terrace, where Liara awaited him. Her presence was magnetic, commanding attention without demanding it. She stood with her back to the sun, the golden light haloing her form, making her look more like a celestial being than a ruler. Kael, she said, turning with deliberate grace. Today is significant. Her tone carried both weight and caution. You must understand the intricacies of Lumara before you can hope to walk safely among its people. He nodded, feeling the familiar human spark of determination rise. I'm ready, he said, though even he knew readiness was a fragile illusion in front of her. Liara's eyes narrowed. We shall see. She motioned toward a pathway winding through the gardens. As they walked, Kael noticed the subtle tension in her movements, every gesture measured, precise, revealing a hidden strength he could barely comprehend. You humans, she said after a pause, have this remarkable trait. You risk without knowing the full consequences. You leap where others hesitate, and yet you endure? Kael glanced at her, curious. Endure? I think that's just survival. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hinted at secrets deeper than the cosmos. Survival, perhaps? But survival in the face of uncertainty, when fear grips the mind and shadows stretch endlessly, that is courage. That is uniquely human. Her words struck him. Humans had survived wars, pandemics, and the unforgiving weight of nature itself. They had crafted worlds from nothing and carried hope when despair seemed inevitable. That was their essence, and somehow Liara saw it clearly, without admiration yet with undeniable recognition. Suddenly, the serene garden path shifted into a training courtyard. Aliens of various forms and sizes moved with swift precision, testing their skills against both one another and advanced machinery. Liara stopped and faced Kael directly. "You will demonstrate something," she said. "Not your strength, not your speed, but your instinct, your resilience." Kael raised an eyebrow. "Resilience?" She nodded. "Yes, here, challenges are more than physical. They test the mind, the spirit, and your ability to act when nothing makes sense. Are you prepared to be human in ways you've never been tested before?" A ripple of tension passed through him. Humans prided themselves on adaptability, but this was more than adaptation. This was judgment, a measure of his very essence. And yet a thrill surged inside him. Kael understood that moments like these defined humanity, when a single choice, a single act could ripple across worlds. Liara studied him silently, her eyes sharper than any weapon he had faced. "You must trust yourself," she said finally, her voice soft but resolute. "Even if I do not." Kael drew in a deep breath. The air smelled of metal, ozone, and something unplaceable, possibility. "Then I trust myself," he said, his voice steady. Liara's eyes glimmered. "Good," she murmured. "That spark? It is dangerous, but it is also beautiful. Humans are dangerous and wonderful in equal measure." And as Kael stepped forward into the unknown trial, he realized that her judgment was not just a test. It was an invitation, an opportunity to show that human resilience was not a myth, but a force capable of shaking alien worlds. In that moment, Kael understood why she had called him here, not to witness his strength, but to witness what it meant to be human. To endure, to challenge, to rise. And he smiled inwardly, because he would not disappoint. The courtyard was silent except for the low hum of alien machinery and the soft shuffle of Kael's boots against the polished stone floor. Before him lay the trial Liara had set, a series of shifting platforms suspended over an energy void, glowing faintly with colors that seemed alive. One misstep and failure, or worse, injury, would follow. Kael's heart raced. Yet deep within him a familiar ember sparked. Humans were born to face impossible odds. Every war, every disaster, every night spent wondering if survival was even possible had honed this instinct. And now he would rely on it. Liara stood to the side, arms crossed, observing. Her sapphire eyes studied him as if weighing every heartbeat, every twitch of muscle, every flicker of hesitation. Kael felt exposed but not intimidated. Her gaze, sharp as it was, stirred something profound, a challenge to be fully, uncompromisingly human. "Your instinct will guide you," she said, her voice calm, almost hypnotic. "But your mind must remain clear. Your spirit, steadfast." Kael nodded, steadying his breathing. Humans could falter, but they could also rise, adapt, and endure. His first step onto the platforms was cautious, deliberate. The surfaces shifted beneath his weight, glowing brighter as he moved. Every step demanded precision, yet he began to sense a rhythm, a pulse, almost like the heartbeat of the planet itself. "Impressive," Liara murmured, tilting her head. "You feel the flow, if you can. Humans rarely pause to listen to what exists beyond the obvious." Kael smiled faintly, ignoring the adrenaline surging through his veins. "We listen, just differently. We notice patterns where others see chaos." Her lips curved, a fleeting, enigmatic smile. "Perhaps that is why you intrigue me so." Minutes passed, though time felt suspended. Platforms rose and fell, shifted and disappeared, forcing Kael to leap, balance, and calculate with lightning speed. He felt sweat beat along his temples, yet his focus never wavered. This was more than a test of agility. It was a test of resolve, courage, and human ingenuity. Suddenly, a platform vanished beneath his feet. Instinct kicked in. Kael twisted midair, landing safely on another, smaller surface. His chest heaved, but a thrill coursed through him. Humans did not just survive, they adapted. They thrived. Even when the odds were stacked impossibly high, Liara's eyes widened ever so slightly. You are extraordinary, she whispered, not because you succeed, but because you persist. That is something your kind carries in its core. Even when all seems lost, you endure. Kael felt a surge of pride, tempered with humility. He had always known humans were resilient, but to hear it acknowledged by someone like Liara, someone so alien, so removed from human struggle, made it tangible. Almost sacred, he pressed on step by step until the final platform hovered before him. The energy beneath pulsed ominously as if testing his resolve one last time. Kael glanced up at Liara. Her expression was inscrutable, but her eyes were studying him, weighing the human spirit against the infinite. With a final leap, Kael landed safely on the last platform. He exhaled, chest heaving, heart pounding, but he felt unbroken, triumphant not just for himself, but for everything humans represented: courage, persistence, and the unyielding spark of life. Liara approached, her gait regal, her eyes locked onto his. "Kael," she said softly, voice carrying awe, "you have done more than complete a trial. You have shown me what it truly means to be human, and I cannot look away." Kael's pulse quickened. That statement, unspoken yet unyielding, changed everything. It was no longer just a test. It was recognition, validation, and perhaps the beginning of something neither human nor alien could have predicted. And in that silent terrace, amidst the glowing energy of Lumara, Kael understood a truth both profound and simple. Humans endure, humans rise, and sometimes humans inspire even the stars themselves. Night fell over Lumara, and the palace lights shimmered like constellations scattered across a darkened sky. Kael walked alongside Liara through the upper terraces, his mind still buzzing from the trial earlier. The thrill of survival, of rising to challenges, had ignited a fire he hadn't felt in years. But the beauty of the night did little to calm the unease growing in his chest. "Kael," Liara said suddenly, her voice slicing through the night air, "tonight will test more than your agility or resilience. It will test your choices," he frowned. "Choices?" She nodded. "There are factions on Lumara that oppose my rule. They seek to disrupt the balance of our society. I cannot face them directly, not without risking much. But you are human, and your kind has a certain unpredictability I hope will serve us." Kael's pulse quickened. Humans were known for ingenuity, for seeing solutions where others saw chaos. If Liara wanted unpredictability, he would deliver it. He just needed to understand the scope. She led him to a balcony overlooking the lower city. Below, shadows moved like whispers through the luminous streets. Armed sentinels patrolled, but Kael could see figures slipping between patrols, coordinated, methodical. "They think they are clever," Liara murmured, "but they underestimate what humans can do." Kael studied the patterns carefully. His military training, his instincts, his ability to predict outcomes from limited data, all human strengths, kicked into high gear. "We can trap them," he said slowly, calculating every movement. "Not with force, not with weapons. With strategy. Let them reveal themselves, let them act, and then—" Liara's eyes glittered with intrigue. "And then?" she prompted. "Then we turn their own assumptions against them," Kael said, voice steady. "Humans survive because we anticipate, improvise, and exploit openings others don't even notice. They will make mistakes, and we'll be ready." Liara studied him, her expression unreadable. You think like a human," she said softly. "Even now, in a world not your own, you trust your instincts over fear." "That is good extraordinary," Kael smirked despite the tension. "Instinct and stubbornness," he said. "Two things humans are very good at. And sometimes hope. Can't forget hope." A sudden alarm echoed through the palace. Liara's eyes narrowed, and she motioned for Kael to follow. Figures from the opposing faction had infiltrated the lower levels, their movements precise, their intent clear. Kael felt his heart race, but not from fear. From anticipation. This was his element: chaos to navigate, decisions to make in moments that could define life or death. He quickly assessed the terrain, the enemy's patterns, and the optimal placement for intervention. "Trust me," he said, glancing at Liara. She nodded, the faintest trace of admiration flickering across her face. Kael sprang into action. Using a combination of speed, deception, and precise timing, he disrupted the intruder's coordination. He guided loyal sentinels to intercept, misled the faction with false trails, and exploited openings that only a human mind could anticipate. Every move carried a rhythm, a calculated chaos that bewildered the enemy. From her vantage point, Liara watched, captivated. She had studied humans for centuries, but never had she seen one operate with such fluidity under pressure, combining courage, cunning, and unpredictability in perfect harmony. By the time the intruders were neutralized, Kael stood amidst the aftermath, breathing heavily but unbroken. Liara approached, her eyes fixed on him, awe and admiration mingling in her gaze. You turned danger into opportunity," she said, voice almost breathless. "No one else could have done this. Not in the way you did." Kael shrugged lightly, a faint smile playing on his lips. Humans have a way of surprising, even themselves. And in that moment, Liara realized that this human, Kael, was not just a visitor to her world. He was a force of nature, a spark of humanity so vivid, so unstoppable, that even an alien princess could not ignore it. After the night's chaos, the palace was unusually quiet. The city below shimmered like liquid starlight, and Kael found himself wandering toward the highest tower, drawn by a sense of calm that contrasted sharply with the turmoil of the previous hours. Liara was already there, standing at the edge of the balcony, her hair catching the glow of Lumara's twin moons. She didn't turn as he approached. "You handled tonight impressively," she said quietly, almost as if speaking to herself. "You exceeded all expectations." Kael stepped beside her, leaning lightly on the railing. "It wasn't just me, your people. They trusted me, even in a world I barely understand." Liara finally looked at him, her sapphire eyes reflecting the moon's glow. "Trust is rare," she said, "even among my own people, and yet I felt it in you, a certainty, an unyielding courage." Kael smiled softly, humbled. "Humans have a way of holding on, even when the odds are impossible. That's all." She studied him silently for a long moment, then turned her gaze back to the city. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met," she admitted. "And yet, I feel something familiar in you, something I cannot name." Kael's heart tightened. He had faced countless dangers, challenges beyond imagination, yet it was her words, her presence, that unsettled him most. "Liara," he said, voice steady despite the sudden weight of emotion. "Humans, we feel deeply. That's part of our strength, part of what makes us unstoppable." Her eyes softened, a vulnerability appearing beneath the regal exterior. "And yet, so fragile," she whispered. "To lose that would be unbearable." Kael turned to her, sensing the tension beneath her calm. "None of us are invincible," he said. "But we endure. We fight, we adapt. And sometimes, we find something worth protecting, something worth risking everything for." Liara's gaze met his, intense and unwavering. The air between them thrummed with unspoken emotion, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming, an extraordinary connection between human and alien, trust and admiration merging into something neither fully understood. "I have observed humans for centuries," she murmured. "I have studied your victories, your failures, and yet I have never encountered one like you, one who faces danger not only with strength but with heart." Kael felt a warmth rise within him, a recognition that transcended words. "Heart, courage, hope," he said softly. "That's what keeps us going. That's what defines us, and I won't let that spark fade here, not now, not ever." Liara's lips curved slightly, a gesture of both acknowledgement and admiration. "You are relentless, Kael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And perhaps that is why I cannot look away. You are human, and yet you inspire something in me, something I have not felt before." Kael reached out instinctively, lightly brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "Liara," he said, voice firm yet gentle, "whatever happens next, know this, humans endure. And when we care, we protect, we fight, we rise. That's not just survival, that's who we are." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The moons reflected in her eyes, and for the first time, Kael saw a flicker of emotion unguarded. A softness, an acknowledgement, a connection. It was not words that conveyed it, but presence and recognition and trust. Liara finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "Kael, you are unlike any human I have known, and perhaps unlike any being I have ever encountered." Kael smiled, a faint glimmer of hope lighting his expression. Then maybe, "We can teach each other," he said. About courage, about trust, about what it means to be human, and perhaps what it means to be more than that. And under the twin moons of Lumara, two worlds converged. Two spirits, one human, one alien, standing together, not as observer and subject, not as ruler and visitor, but as equals in the extraordinary journey of life, courage, and connection. The sky above Lumara burned with streaks of crimson and gold, an unusual storm surging across the horizon. Kael stood at the edge of the palace balcony, feeling the energy of the planet resonate beneath his feet. Tonight was not a test, not a trial. It was destiny in motion. Liara appeared beside him, her presence calm yet charged, as though the storm itself respected her. Her sapphire eyes held both wonder and uncertainty, the duality of a ruler and a being unaccustomed to raw human emotion. "They will come," she said softly. "Those who seek to challenge me, to fracture my rule, to undermine my people. I cannot face them alone." Kael glanced at her, feeling the familiar surge of resolve that had carried him through every trial so far. "You won't have to," he said firmly. "Not tonight. Humans endure, Liara. We rise when we're counted out, we fight when the odds are stacked against us, and we protect those who inspire us." Her gaze softened, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her features. "Kael, you speak as though you've known this moment your entire life." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I have. Or maybe humans just know when something is worth fighting for." The first wave of intruders appeared below, a shadowy fleet moving with precise coordination. But Kael, armed with human ingenuity and unwavering courage, orchestrated the palace defenses like a conductor leading an orchestra. He anticipated their moves, turned their own strategies against them, and adapted faster than they could react. Liara watched, awe mixing with admiration. This human, so seemingly ordinary by the universe's standards, commanded presence, resilience, and ingenuity that surpassed any alien expectation. Each decision he made, every calculated risk, resonated with the essence of humanity. Unpredictable, relentless, unstoppable. The battle reached its peak. Lumara's energy shield shimmered, intruders faltered, and the storm above mirrored the chaos below. Kael moved through the fray with precision, combining instinct with intellect, heart with action. Humanity's spirit, bold, inventive, resilient, was on full display, and it was enough. Finally, the intruders faltered, retreating into the night. Silence fell. The storm began to wane, leaving the palace illuminated by Lumara's twin moons reflecting off Kael's sweat-streaked face and Liara's awe-filled eyes. Liara approached him, her voice trembling. You are human," she said simply. "And yet you are more than I could have imagined. Courage, intellect, heart, and a spark that cannot be extinguished. Kael, you have shown me what it truly means to endure." Kael reached for her hand, a gesture natural, human, yet filled with respect and purpose. "Liara," he said softly, "humans endure not just for themselves, but for what matters. For hope, for trust, for those worth protecting. You are worth protecting." For a moment, the universe seemed to pause. Two worlds, two beings stood together, bound by courage, admiration, and something far deeper than words. Liara's eyes shimmered with tears, not of fear, but of understanding. "And perhaps," she whispered, voice filled with wonder, "that is why your kind captivates me so. You are human, and you remind me of what is possible." Kael smiled, his chest swelling with the undeniable pride of human spirit. "Then perhaps," he said gently, "we can discover that together, not as alien and human, ruler and visitor, but as two beings who choose to rise, endure, and inspire." Liara's lips curved into a full smile for the first time, radiant and genuine. "Yes," she breathed. "Together." And as the twin moons bathed Lumara in silver light, Kael realized the truth he had always carried within him. Humans endure, humans inspire, and when courage meets hope, even the stars themselves take notice. In that moment, a human and an alien princess forged a bond that would echo across worlds, a testament to resilience, courage, and the extraordinary power of the human spirit.